All right. And I think we have a lot of people on, so let's get started. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to learn about Protocols IO. I am Lenny Teytelman. I'm one of the co-founders and president of Protocols IO. And it was actually, so I'm a scientist, genetics and computational biology. And it was my postdoctoral research experience and the frustrations with fixing just one tiny step of a protocol that led me to co-found Protocols IO. So it's a pleasure to present. And before we get started, just a few housekeeping things. So as I mentioned, we are recording this. We will be sending the slides and the video of the webinar to everyone who registered. So you don't need to scribble down URLs. You'll have the slides and video shortly today or tomorrow after the webinar. If you need closed captioning to be turned on, you should be able to do that at the bottom of the Zoom screen in the control panel. And after the webinar, we'll have plenty of time, 10, 15 minutes for Q&A. And again, there's a Q&A button, so you should be able to add your questions and we'll go through. And importantly, this is an introductory basic webinar for those who maybe just created an account or don't even have an account yet on Protocols.io. But we run a panel of different webinars every month. So you can go to the /webinars link on Protocols.io to see about the advanced and other webinars that we run. And if you have a specific question that we don't get to today, there is a really good help section. But if you'd like to connect with our customer support or one of our scientists, if you go to this link, the demo, on the day and at a time that's convenient for you, you can connect with one of our team members for a demo, a specific question. It's a 15-minute, 30-minute Zoom call where you get to have one-on-one with one of us. So you don't have to wait for the next webinar to hear the advanced features or how to do something specific. And on this webinar, I'll introduce Protocols.io, talk about the importance of method sharing, and then do a live demo of the platform. And as I said, then transition to the Q&A. All right. So as I said, it was my postdoc experience that led to the idea for Protocols.io with my co-founders, and we started working towards it in 2012. We launched Protocols.io in 2014. It went live in February of 2014, so just over 10 years old. And as a snapshot, we have about 1 million people visiting Protocols.io to the open access side to view protocols. About 200,000 registered users that have created accounts and are creating these public and private protocols. And I actually need to update this. There's now over 24,000 public protocols, 80,000 private ones. And so there's two sides to Protocols.io. There's the public side that is open access, free to read and free to publish. And then the private side is the one that we charge for if you're using it for internal collaboration, right? So public sharing, unlimited and free, and the private side is the one we charge for. There are a lot of academic and industry customers of Protocols.io. If you're at a university, I'll touch on how to check if you have premium. So there are a lot of organizations that do have premium protocols IO. So I'll touch on how to check whether your organization is part of that. All right. And with that, let's jump into method sharing in general. So our mission is to make it easy to share method details, but it's not just for publication or after publication, it's also for internal collaboration with your colleagues within your laboratory, with your external collaborators. And as I said, there's two different sides to Protocols IO, the open access repository, and then the private workspaces. I'll focus more on just what a public protocol looks like, but the functionality is the same. It's just a matter of whether the protocols that you have with all the same functionality, if they're public or within a workspace and just visible to you or your colleagues. So as I said, before we do the live demo, if you are part of a university and want to check if your organization has a site license, as many around the world do, if you go to Protocols IO for Institutions page, there is a drop down in the middle of that page where you can see all of the universities that have premium, and then you'll get instructions for how to activate. In most cases, it's either single sign-on or you use your university email address to verify that you have the affiliation, and then your account becomes premium. Um, that that is very easy to do, but if you have a Gmail account already on Protocols IO, you can always upgrade to premium, click a verification, and continue using. You don't have to close down or merge accounts. If you signed up with Orchid, with Gmail, Yahoo, whatever email you've used, you don't have to switch the accounts. You can continue using that. And methods specifically, I have a long thread of bookmarked complaints from researchers around the world that I started collecting, I think, back in 2016, of scientists reading research papers and trying to figure out exactly what was done based on the method section. And of course, a lot of the time, the details are missing that you need to actually repeat somebody else's experiment. On the left-hand side is a biologist saying that you are digging through many methods to find the details. And the person says, I appreciate when people share detailed protocols on Protocols IO instead of just a method section that says is described elsewhere. And I love this one from a physicist, which says, reading a 2017 paper, devices were fabricated as previously described, previously described, previously described, and the original reference just says devices were fabricated with conventional methods. So good luck in trying to build on the work, replicate, and get it to work in your organization, right? And this is, of course, anecdotal, but there was a quite rigorous initiative called the Cancer Biology Reproducibility Project that got started, I think, in 2015. It was an effort from the Center for Open Science and their company Science Exchange to take I believe it was 50 or so top cancer biology papers and just independently try to reproduce what was reported in those papers for the key experiments in a different lab. And it was really hard to do. So 2 years into that multi-million-dollar project, the first results came out and there was a lot of media attention. This is 2017 when it's happening. So a lot of newspapers wrote about it, and Ed Young, fantastic science writer in The Atlantic. He had a long article about it, and part of it highlighted the method specifically, and he wrote that the hardest part by far was figuring out exactly what the original labs actually did. Our research papers theoretically are supposed to include the recipes for repeating the experiments, but they're often incomplete, missing out important steps, details, or ingredients, and often they're not described at all, but just a reference to an earlier technique, as we saw on the previous slide. And when the effort wrapped up a couple of years later, there is now a summary page on the Center for Open Science. It was 193 different experiments that the initiative tried to replicate, and they said 0% of them did they have full protocols that were attached to the research paper itself. They needed to contact the teams that published the work, have them dig through their lab notebooks and records to find the copies of the protocols and the step-by-step details. So this is the part when you think back to the slide I showed just a couple of minutes ago, the mission of Protocols.io. This is exactly the kind of thing that we're trying to improve and make it easier to share these details before you're publishing, when you've published, and then later, if you make corrections and improvements, we also want to make it easy. One of the key reasons for the existence of Protocols.io is to make it easy to share new developments and any corrections and optimizations to those protocols that we've shared. And that was an initiative from quite a while back, but we're still publishing papers and talking about the need to make it better. So we still have a lot of work ahead of us, but I am encouraged that there is a lot of progress, even if we're not there yet. All right. So at this point, I think I'm still sharing the screen. But at this point, I am going to go into the live demo of Protocols.io. And as I said, I will be showing one of the public protocols, but the functionality is exactly the same on the protocol level. The functionality, what you'll be seeing on the public protocol is the same. And it's important to note that every single protocol on Protocols.io that you create, it starts out privately and confidentially. It's yours. You decide who to share it with, what permissions to give to them. Is it only for viewing? Is it for viewing and editing? Are there a full co-author, co-administrator on the protocol and can publish it? Obviously, if you're in a private company, publishing is probably turned off for your organization, your workspace. But for academics, there's a lot of public method sharing that is at the heart of Protocols.io. So if we look at one of the example protocols on Protocols.io, you'll see that there is organization. We break down. It's not just one long document, but there are different sections. There's the step-by-step instructions, guidelines, materials, troubleshooting section that you can see in every protocol. And importantly, these are dynamic and interactive protocols. They're not just static PDFs. So what do I mean by it? Many of the protocols you'll see have structure, have components. People add videos into them. We're starting to see more and more videos, so you can easily take your iPhone or Samsung tablet into the cold room, create a video of exactly how you processed your tissue, and drop it right into a step of the protocol or add a link to YouTube if you've put it up, and it will render nicely right inside the step. You will also notice that every single step, as I mouse over it, on the right is a little plus sign that allows me to ask a question about this step. And that will go to the authors of the protocol. That question will go to everyone who has bookmarked, who's using it. If you ask it publicly, you can see you have the option of asking just the authors of the protocol, but by default, if it's on a public protocol, it will be a public question. And what's nice about it is, here's an example. You're sort of, as you have these public discussions, they're happening right on the step of the protocol, instead of happening on Blue Sky, Twitter, on LinkedIn, ResearchGate. They're tied to the protocol, and you're sort of building an FAQ right on the protocol itself. So here's a question from a scientist who is viewing the protocol, reply from the author about it. So you can add images here, and we'll see examples of people saying, hey, here's what I got. Is that right for this step? Is this looking correct? Which is great to see. And as these conversations happen, if you want to improve the protocol, that post-publication part, it's important to note that you can easily version protocols. So now we're looking at version 2. If there is a reference to an earlier version, or someone has it bookmarked, if they land on the earlier version of your protocol, they'll get a pop-up that tells them that this is outdated and guide them to the newer version. They can still view the original or navigate to the most recent one. And then there is a compare button that allows you to look at the versions side by side to see which steps are the same and which ones have changed. The ones that changed will be highlighted, and you can similarly take a look at the different sections of the protocol to see where are the changes between version 1 and version 2. So that's that balance between the original version is there. You can switch to it, you can look at it, you can compare, but we try to guide everyone to the most up-to-date version with those corrections and optimizations. All right. And then the next thing that I wanted to highlight is that every single protocol, when we talk about them being dynamic and interactive, every single protocol that you see on the platform, whether it's part of those 24,000 public ones or any of the 80,000 private protocols, every single one of them serves as essentially a template. So you'll see at the top of every protocol, there is a copy fork button that allows you to create a copy of the protocol that you see, and it becomes editable. So depending on the organisms you're studying, the approaches, the equipment that is in your research team, where in the world you are, you can make a copy. If you're working with crickets and I'm working with grasshoppers, there might be slight variations in how we perform the work, and that's where this comes in handy. So you can take any of the public protocols, make a copy, it becomes editable, private to you. I can see as an author if people are making forks of my protocol, but I don't know what they're changing unless someone shares that fork. So you can see in this example, there are no public forks, but there are 95 private forks, that is other scientists making forks of the protocol and using it with slight modifications in their research. Right? And as a reminder, if you're just joining us, at the bottom of the screen is a Q&A button. So as we go through, if you have questions about what I'm presenting, don't hesitate to drop them into the Q&A, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. And then on the protocol level, the last thing that I wanted to highlight is that another really important and useful feature of Protocols.io is that there is a run button on the protocol. So for the hands-on, the field methods, the wet lab, bench techniques, the run button is really nice. And I think about 5 to 10% of the protocols that we have in the public repository of protocols.io, 5 to 10% of them are computational workflows, but the majority are hands-on methods. And for those, the run button is really nice. So you choose where to save your run record, start the run, and this is like a checklist app that allows you to see where you are as you're doing the cooking, as you're going through the experiment. You can see what your progress is. If there's a timer, you can start it right in the fume hood on your tablet. And importantly, as you go through the experiment, if you change anything on that particular day, on any of the steps, you can click edit and say, actually, today, instead of room temperature, I did it at 10 degrees. And then you have a record. And then you have a record of exactly how you ran the protocol. When you finish, you'll save it. And it will be available. You're not changing the underlying protocol, but you're saving a record of how you ran the protocol on that particular day. So you'll have it in your workspace. I'll show that a little bit later, how to navigate where that will be. But you can come back 6 months later. You can export the runs to your lab notebook, print it out, get a PDF, or just have it in Protocols.io with a record of exactly how you've done the experiment that day. So it's a little bit like an ELN, electronic laboratory notebook, record of what you've done as you were performing the experiment. All right. And let me also, just a second, let me finish up in a moment the live demo. All right, here we are. So the other part that I wanted to show, not just the protocol level, but I also wanted to show what those what the organization is like and where you'll be if you create an account on Protocols.io. So typically, if you have an account and you sign in, you're going to end up in one or another of the workspaces that you've been invited to. So this is where all of the work happens. This is where you'll typically land on Protocols.io when you sign in. And this is, you can have, I have a test workspace here, demo workspace with other colleagues, but you can have a workspace just for yourself, or you can be in a research team where everyone is sharing protocols with each other. It looks a lot like a laptop or desktop file manager. So you have folders, subfolders. There are a lot of administrative tools for managing the members, the permissions, the settings of the workspace, the expected flow, but it makes it really easy for everyone to organize all of the protocols in one central place. And you will also notice when you're here, you will also notice that if you create a protocol, that's a native record in Protocols.io, but you'll also notice that you can drag and drop, upload files. If I click new, I can create a new protocol, or I can upload files, and you can just easily drop PDFs, Excel, zip files that you want to share with the team, more like Dropbox. So whatever format your protocols are in, you can centralize it, even if you're not taking the time to create them from scratch in Protocols.io. And as you pull in, whether it's a Word file or PDF, if you have existing protocols, this is fairly new thanks to the large language models. if you click on the PDF that you've pulled in, you have the ability to convert it in about a minute for most protocols, or maybe even faster, using OpenAI. Your protocol doesn't go to train their model. It stays private and proprietary to you. But instead of you manually copying and pasting step by step and pulling the protocols in, you can quickly create a draft. It's not perfect, but it captures 90-95% of what was in your protocol, figures out what goes into steps, what goes into materials, and does a fairly good job. And then you just check the formatting, the tables, and make sure that everything was imported correctly. And you can do this quickly, pull in 10 different protocols into your folder, click convert, and it makes it very easy to get started on Protocols.io. And then once the conversion happened, you can go into the editor, and I'm not going to be doing an exhaustive demo of the editor itself, but you'll see that there's a lot of nice functionality in terms of how you can format the protocols, the components that we have for computational, chemistry, biology, structure that you can add. You don't have to, it can be just plain text, but for readability and some of the run functionality in terms of scaling the amounts and interacting with the individual steps of the protocols, it's really nice to take advantage of the components. So there is a lot of work that we've put into the editor, but we focus on that a little bit more in our advanced webinar. So I think I'm going to wrap up the live demo shortly and then get to the Q&A. But as I wrap up, I wanted to say that in addition to private workspaces, as you interact with Protocols.io, if you do a search, by default, you are searching protocols. So wastewater surveillance, there's 135 results. By default, you're searching those 24,000 public protocols and getting results based on that. However, you can also search public workspaces. So there are communities of researchers that share protocols publicly. And depending on what you work on, there may or may not be such a community already on Protocols.io. Some of them have a lot of members, a lot of discussions, and if you join, it might be completely open, or as in this case, it might be a workspace that you have to request to join. Some are completely open, like this one. And you can see this is a space where the community, Human Cell Atlas method development community, where they've shared over 200 protocols. There's over 640 researchers, almost 2,000 discussions that have been happening there over the years. So this is a place where it's not just on a specific protocol, but if you're a member of such a community, you can come in, join it, and then you can ask a question, not about a specific protocol, but just ask, I'm having trouble getting a technique to work. There may or may not be a protocol shared in this community already on this, but you can find people who have knowledge. You can be asking, does anyone have a protocol for this? So it's a little bit like being on social media if you find the right community. And if not, you can always start a public workspace and nucleate in your field the sharing in workspaces like this. All right. So just a reminder, when you're searching on Protocols.io, also look for communities that are relevant to you. And when you share protocols, what's nice about such communities is instead of your protocol just being one of 24,000 public ones, and most people would find that either by searching protocols or on Google Scholar or Google search. What's nice in communities is that it's very collaborative. Everyone stays up to date. So if you're part of a community like this, if there's a workspace, when people update their protocols, when discussions happen, if a new protocol comes in, you're notified. We send a digest twice a week of everything that is new in the workspaces that you're part of. So you're aware of new techniques and updates to existing ones that have been shared in that community. All right. And we're almost in the Q&A. I know that we have some questions that are coming in, and I will wrap up in just 2 minutes. But I also wanted to say a word about using Protocols IO for sharing. When you are, if you're academic, if you're publishing just a research paper, or if you want to get more credit for your protocol. So let me highlight this. There are, since we've launched in 2014, we've gone a long way from no one knowing that we exist to having, as I said, 1 million scientists use us every year. We were acquired by Springer Nature in 2023, but we remain an independent repository. We're journal agnostic. So last year, all of Wiley journals added Protocols IO to their author guidelines, and I need to correct this, but at this point, there's over 1,000 different journals that recommend using Protocols IO when you're submitting your research paper. And if you're using Protocols IO and your team's protocols are already there, when it comes time to publish, we actually save you time because you click Get DOI, add a link to your specific protocol or a bunch of protocols into your method section. That helps reviewers, that helps the future readers of your paper, and makes it easier to write your method section because the details are not vague. They're not contact author for details. You don't have to squeeze everything into the method section. You can say the detailed information on the protocol is available at this link. There are more and more research funders that recommend Protocols IO, and as I mentioned, increasing growing number of industry and academic organizations that have site licenses that make the premium private side of Protocols IO free as well. And as we head into the Q&A, just wanted to remind those who joined a little bit later that we have an amazing help center with a lot of information. We have a page of 1 to 2 minute tutorials on specific topics and tasks you might have on Protocols IO. Very responsive team. So if you email us at info@protocols.io, we respond very quickly. Different webinars, as I said in the beginning, that we run every month, recording of previous webinars. And then, as I said at the beginning again, we have one-on-one personal demos where if you have a question, you can jump on a call at a time of your choice. And again, info@protocols.io is a good way to get in touch with our global team, depending on your time zone. And with that, I would like to just ask for those that have an extra moment. We're going to get into the Q&A now, but so I don't forget to share, there is my email if there are questions we don't get to on today's webinar. And also, we really value feedback. So if there are things we missed and you feel like they should be part of the intro webinar, or any other comments, if you have an extra 30 seconds, when you get the slides, there is a form for feedback on the webinar. And with that, let's jump into any questions. So I can see the chat. There's the Q&A. I found it. So the first question is, thank you for this informative webinar. I've posted an animated GIF in my private protocol to show some sequence of events. However, when I do this through the editor, the mobile version is wonky. It gets cut. And this only happens on the mobile. How can I fix this? So thank you for letting us know. As I said, our input protocols IO, we have a sizable engineering team, and these are the kinds of things when you, it's a little bit hard to troubleshoot if we don't have an example of your protocol, but if you email input protocols IO a private link, and let me show you, I think I'm still screen sharing. This is a good time to show that it's very easy to share your protocols. So if I come into any of my protocols inside the file manager, there's a share button. I can share with folks. I can share with folks by email. Obviously, everyone who's part of a workspace, it's shared with, but you can click on Get Reviewer link, and that gives you a private link to a protocol. If you share that with our team, we fix such issues very quickly. So without having a link to your protocol, it's a little bit hard to troubleshoot, but it's amazing if you can email our team a link to your protocol, which step the GIF is in, and we'll fix it quickly. So it shouldn't be you fixing it. Please just email us and we'll quickly adjust. So just grab that private link and share with us. And amazing that you have protocols, you're sharing it with colleagues, and that you're adding animations, videos to it, because I'm a big believer as a scientist in the videos being really helpful for someone. Like sharing protocols and text is great, but when you make a short video, that goes a long way, especially for people that are not native English speakers, but for anyone, it goes a really long way in helping someone figure out the technique and not make mistakes. So thank you for doing that. The next question is, what format the protocols are stored in. Is it XML? Is it JSON? Have there been any transformations written to convert to or from protocols IO? And I'll answer that question in a second, but the third question is about the recording. So I mentioned it only in the beginning. I should have repeated it at the end. Both the slides and the recording of this webinar we'll be sending either a little bit later today or tomorrow. We'll be sharing that with everyone. So yes, you will be getting that. And about the format, so the protocols are stored as JSON records. And we have, in terms of connections, converters, that is a fantastic question. So we have a really well-documented public API that allows you, so there's the documentation that allows you to connect to protocols IO, pull out your private content or any of the public protocols because it is open access. And yes, these are JSON files. And there are actually partners, several electronic lab notebooks and some other resources that use our API that have written converters that pull out of protocols IO, and into a lab notebook. So if you're a developer and this is relevant for you, we encourage you to take advantage of our API. And there is a read API as well that allows you to automatically create protocols if you want to convert from your existing storage or from an ALN send into protocols IO. But yes, that's also a great question. And we're almost at the 45 minutes. Again, if we did not get, I'm putting it into the chat. If we didn't get to a question that you have, or if you have questions that come up later on as you're interacting with Protocols IO, I put my email into the chat and info at Protocols IO, and it will also be in the slides that we'll share a little bit later. All right. And with that, I'll end the recording. If you want to ask something off the record, I'll stay on. And I'm going to stop the recording.